Why do you think he didn't mean that? Because he said could be an issue for the people in this room in terms of, he referenced very specific cities here in the United States, mostly Democratic-led cities.
Well, I think he doesn't mean it in the manner in which you said it. I think he certainly means it overall. He's raised it before in the issue of public safety, and he certainly has raised it before in that manner.
Señores, lo que estamos viendo es vergonzoso. Los líderes republicanos literalmente están perdiendo el control. Y claro, junto a Donald Trump, llevaron a Estados Unidos directo a un cierre del gobierno. Ahora, como si nada, fingen que no han escuchado las barbaridades que Donald Trump ha estado diciendo, ¿no? La típica jugada de yo no vi nada, yo no escuché nada. Porque claro, aceptar la realidad los deja en evidencia. Quiero que empecemos mirando al senador MAGA Ron Johnson. En CNN le preguntaron qué opinaba sobre Trump, que ha estado utilizando imágenes generadas por inteligencia artificial, donde puso a Hakeem Jeffries con un sombrero mexicano y un bigote falso, y hasta manipula con inteligencia artificial la voz de Chuck Schumer. Y bueno, ¿qué respondió Johnson? No sé, no vi nada, no tengo ni la menor idea de lo que hablas. Escuchen.
President Trump posted an AI-generated depiction of Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero and mustache. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic House leader, responded saying, "Bigotry will get you nowhere." What was your response to this if you saw it? Are you comfortable with your party leader posting things like this?
I honestly haven't seen it. Don't know what you're talking about.
Así de patéticos, mis amigos. Y no es el único, porque también John Thune, que antes era visto como un republicano serio, moderado, pues bueno, al parecer había sido MAGA total. Cuando le preguntaron si le parecía normal todo este circo de este tipo de imágenes con el sombrero, ¿ustedes saben qué dijo? Que están consiguiendo muy buen contenido. Contenido. O sea, literalmente, los estadounidenses están sufriendo por el cierre de gobierno y ellos celebran memes. Aquí lo tienen.
Have you heard them ever talk so much about a sombrero?
Yeah, it's been a subject, and really overused subject all day up here today. So, yeah, who knew, right? That you could get this kind of content and get this kind of vibe going about it. Yeah.
Ven el patrón. Otro caso es Mike Turner. Este tipo que antes se suponía que también era un republicano centrado y con peso en temas de seguridad. Ahora se dedica a justificar lo injustificable. Le preguntaron por qué Trump le dijo a los generales en esta última reunión en el Pentágono que invadieran ciudades americanas. Y bueno, Turner contestó, no lo dijo en ese sentido, quiso decir otra cosa. Y es más, la periodista le lee la cita textual y él insiste que no, que lo entendemos mal. Patético. Vean esto.
Why do you think he didn't mean that? Because he said could be an issue for the people in this room in terms of, he referenced very specific cities here in the United States, mostly Democratic-led cities.
Well, I think he doesn't mean it in the manner in which you said it. I think he certainly means it overall. He's raised it before in the issue of public safety, and he certainly has raised it before in that manner.
Yeah, no, I'm just quoting him. He said what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, LA, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war too. It's a war from within.
Right, it's a common theme of his, and it certainly is an important issue, and certainly for the people who live there. I think across the country, everybody understands, and it polls, I think certainly even if your viewers understand that our cities have an issue of crime. And I think that is an issue that people know impacts our daily lives. It certainly impacts our economy and people daily. And I think the president has rightly identified that as important. And that certainly is equally important. Public safety and national security safety are equally important issues. They impact our lives.
Por si fuera poco, luego Turner intentó reempaquetar lo dicho por Trump y Pete Hegseth, diciendo que en realidad era paz a través de la fuerza. En serio, o sea, Donald Trump hablando de utilizar al ejército contra su propio pueblo, y había sido que es paz a través de la fuerza. Escuchen.
What
Thank
was
you.
your reaction to what you heard from Secretary Hegseth and President Trump to those military leaders today?
Right, Caitlin, thank you for having me. And the part of the speech that you didn't play, which I think is probably the most important, which was the crux of really his message, is that he's returning the focus to peace through strength and the fact that we really do have adversaries who mean us harm. There was a period of time where the Department of Defense went through this whole concept.
Ahora bien, pasemos a Brooke Rollins, secretaria de Agricultura. Sale diciendo que Trump es el presidente más pro campo de la historia, pero en la misma frase termina admitiendo que los agricultores enfrentan problemas graves y mucha incertidumbre. ¿Qué clase de contradicción es esa? Escuchen.
Farmers are getting a little angry, a little antsy here. It's pretty clear they support the administration. They understand what's going on, but they're sort of caught in the middle. China specifically trying to hurt them in this tariff war. So what should they expect from the White House?
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Charles, and I loved your introduction. I think it told the story perfectly. For so long, this country has been basically built on the backs of our farmers and our ranchers. President Trump has been the most pro-farmer president, perhaps in our lifetimes, perhaps in history. But this moment of uncertainty in the farm economy is real. And there are many reasons for that. Obviously, the ongoing trade negotiations with China and others, but it goes way before that. Under Joe Biden, the cost of inputs went up 30%. No new trade deals, which you showed in that chart, which was actually a great chart. It's pretty remarkable that in 4 years under Joe Biden, there was not one new trade deal. And we went from an ag trade surplus under Trump 1 to a $50 billion ag deficit under Joe Biden. And we're now just beginning to crawl our way back out of that. But the times are changing. Listen, it is a golden age. It's around the corner. But this president on Liberation Day at the White House, when, we were all watching when he announced this new tariff and trade world realignment, that it was going to take a little bit of time. But in that time, we've already struck 7 or 8 deals. Japan, the UK, the EU, Indonesia, the Philippines. I mean, I was in the UK 2 weeks ago selling ethanol, supposed to be in Japan tomorrow talking rice and other row crops. We'll see with the government shutdown if that happens. But it is going to be gangbusters. But right now, the farm economy is not in a good place. We're working around the clock. The president has committed to supporting our farmers, and we'll have an announcement on that very soon, likely next week.
En otro momento le preguntan cuál es el plan para ayudar a los granjeros y responde que es una solución elegante, que los aranceles están trayendo dinero y que la economía mundial ahora gira alrededor de Estados Unidos. Mentira. La realidad, amigos, es que los países se están desvinculando de Estados Unidos. Por eso es que los agricultores no pueden vender sus productos, porque nadie quiere negociar con ellos, y esa es la verdad. Vean esto.
Can you tell us a little bit more about President Trump's plan to use tariff money to pay farmers? What does that look like? How much are we talking about? How long will that program last?
It is a very elegant solution, right? The amount of tariff money that is coming into our country is stunning. The president had a vision. He's effectuating the vision. The vision is pretty remarkable. The whole entire world economy is now realigning around American products, which is incredible. But again, to this moment of uncertainty, the ability to offset any payments to the farmers through potential tariff revenue is really where the president wants us to head, and that's what we're looking at very soon.
Y claro, no pueden faltar las distracciones ridículas, ¿no? El senador Cramer, por ejemplo, justificando todo este cierre de gobierno, hablando de atletas trans en deportes femeninos, y bueno, al parecer ese es el gran problema nacional según ellos. Escuchen.
They want open borders, they want men playing in women's sports.
Senator Cramer, just in a moment like this of such seriousness, is this really about stuff like men playing in women's sports?
Well, I don't know whether it is or it isn't, but the issue of the moment is keeping the government open, and the Democrats have chosen not to do that. This is not complicated, Aaron. This is a clean CR, something Democrats voted for 13 times in the Biden administration when Chuck Schumer was a majority leader. So this is not, this isn't, unknown territory to anybody. This has become far too common, quite honestly. And the other thing that's discouraging about it is we actually have real momentum in regular order in the appropriations process. Last year, Chuck Schumer didn't allow one appropriations bill to come to the Senate floor. We've already passed 3 of them on the Senate floor and on our way to passing just about all of the rest of them, and with agreement, by the way, with the House in many cases. So all of that momentum is being closed up now because Chuck Schumer is afraid of AOC more than he is afraid of the consequences of a government shutdown.
Y luego tenemos a Mike Johnson, el líder MAGA en la Cámara, el cual fue un poco cuestionado y se tocó el tema de que Trump podría ser destituido por un nuevo impeachment. Escuchen.
Speaker Johnson, you have a very, very, very narrow majority. At a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that the Republicans build on this very slim majority next year?
We're going to win the midterms. Absolutely. We're going to have a big victory, and I think we can expand that majority so we can keep going. We have to give President Trump 4 years and not 2. Imagine if the Democrats took over the House, they'd impeach him.
They're getting ready for the investigations. They're already ramping it up.
Luego aparece Katie Britt. No sé si la recuerdan. Es la misma del desastroso discurso en respuesta al Estado de la Unión. Y ahora sale diciendo que Trump ganó los corazones y las mentes del pueblo. Trump, que sube videos con Hakeem Jeffries en sombrero mexicano en el sentido de burla, porque lo hacen en el sentido de burla. Y sus posts de conspiraciones canon, de camas mágicas alienígenas que curan el cáncer. ¿Eso es visión del país? Pues bueno, aquí la tenemos.
The only reason they're making a different change here is because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump won the hearts and minds of the American people. He won their confidence, and we're going to enact his vision. So we're ready to get going, and we'll be here when they finally get to do that.
Después tenemos a Roosevelt, que es el cerebro detrás del famoso Proyecto 2025. Literalmente, amigos, está feliz el hombre, porque con el cierre de gobierno van a poder recortar servicios, despedir a cientos de miles de trabajadores públicos, y que todo esto es parte de ese proyecto. Escuchen.
And we're going to manage this shutdown and try to keep the American people from the havoc that the Democrats have caused on with their crazy demands. But let it be said, there are all manner of authorities to be able to keep this administration's policy agenda moving forward, and that includes reducing the size and scope of the federal government, and we will be looking for opportunities to do that.
Ahora bien, del otro lado, señores, por suerte hay voces con un poco de dignidad. Bernie Sanders fue preguntado si es que votaría para financiar este régimen autoritario. Respuestas contundentes. Escuchen.
But these guys have said it's my way or the highway. This is the way it's going to be. And that is kind of what Trumpism is about. That's that authoritarian tendency that we're seeing in America right now.
So are you telling me you're willing to vote no every time Leader Thin
Damn right.
brings this
I am
up?
not going to allow. Let me be clear. All right? You can quote me on this. You can quote me on this. We say in Vermont, till the cows come home. I will not let tens of thousands of fellow Americans die because they're thrown off of healthcare. In my state, people cannot afford a doubling in the healthcare premiums. We are already paying the highest prices in the country for healthcare. People just can't afford it. And what the Republicans have got to do is go into their hearts and go back into their constituents. Ask their constituents in Louisiana, where Johnson is from. Do you think it's a good idea to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to people like Bezos and Musk and Zuckerberg, the richest people in this country, in order to throw people off the health care they have? I think the answer will be a resounding no. So I hope the Republicans develop a sense of morality, listen to the people of America, and do the right thing.
Luego tenemos a Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, como siempre, sin rodeos. Dice que Trump y su régimen son débiles, son impopulares, son despreciados, pero que intentan proyectar poder, solo para engañar a la gente. Por eso hay que plantarle cara. Escuchen.
I think there's 2 things that are happening at once, and this is something that's very important for people to understand. One, there absolutely is an unprecedented abuse of power, destruction of norms, erosion of our government and our democracy in order to prop up an authoritarian style of governance. That is happening. However, they are weaker than they look. And it is important that we remember that, because what they rely on is the impression of power, the perception of inevitability, in us giving up in advance to say, oh, what's going to happen if I stand up, etc. Nothing's going to happen. They rely on that perception of inevitability and power so that people comply in advance and acquiesce in advance and give up in advance. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is at record levels of unpopularity in his tenure. The Republican House is at record levels of unpopularity. They are underwater across the board, and they know it. And that is causing them to double down in public, but it is backfiring. That is why, whether it's a shutdown, whether it's all of this, they want us to blink first. And we have too much to save. Protecting people is too important a task for us to give up before anything even starts. So they may want to send people in, but these National Guardsmen do not want to be turned against their fellow Americans. We're seeing this here in Washington, D.C. It is an insult. Donald Trump is insulting the service members of this country by putting them on these silly tasks that they themselves do not want to be enforcing. And so we have to understand that standing up matters, that our voice matters, to not give in to this cynicism, because that is what they rely on in order to perpetuate this idea that they are that they have total immunity from consequence. They will experience the consequences of this, but we have to be the consequence, which is why we have to stand tall right now alongside everyday Americans who want us to be standing up right now as well.
Y nuevamente, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lo explica perfecto. Donald Trump juega al farol. Quiere hacernos creer que es inevitable, pero no lo es.
You know, Donald Trump is trying to play this bluffing game of, well, maybe what we're going to do is hold all the federal workforce hostage and fire everybody. Donald Trump has been firing everybody. We saw this with DOJ. We've seen this at the State Department. We've seen this at the Department of Justice. They are firing everybody. They are completely eliminating the federal workforce. And in order for us to stop this madness, we have to put a stop to it, and we have to stop enabling their abuse of power, including their use of rescissions. And when we're fighting on their health care, it forces them to act in ways in accordance with the law in other ways too.
Mientras tanto, el asesor económico Kevin Hassett dice que estamos en una edad dorada. Escuchen.
The golden age that President Trump promised us is really on the way.
Edad dorada. Pues bueno, este es el oro que defienden. El senador Roger Marshall, hablando de lo que según él es prioridad nacional. Vean esto.
It seems very disingenuous for the Democrats to be blaming President Trump for these rural hospital struggles. The reason rural hospitals are struggling is because of the bad economy, because they've lost 30 or 50% of their population.
Ahí lo tienen, amigos, republicanos perdiendo el control, intentando justificar lo injustificable, celebrando memes mientras millones están sufriendo el costo de un cierre de gobierno que ellos mismos han provocado. Ahora bien, amigos, una pregunta que ha estado circulando mucho desde el día de ayer es ¿qué le está pasando a Donald Trump? Esa es la pregunta que muchos empiezan a hacerse luego de este último discurso frente a los altos mandos militares. Un discurso que en teoría era para mostrar fuerza, claridad, liderazgo, y bueno, terminó siendo todo lo contrario. Confuso, apagado, hasta preocupante. Pero lo más inquietante, señores, es que no hablamos de un simple mal día de Trump, sino de señales que podrían reflejar algo mucho más profundo. Durante más de una hora, Donald Trump habló frente a cientos de generales y almirantes en Washington. Como les dije, lo que debía haber sido un mensaje de poder terminó siendo un espectáculo lleno de divagaciones, frases incoherentes, momentos en los que hasta parecía haber perdido el hilo de sus propias ideas. Y bueno, la prensa no perdió el tiempo y lo describió como un discurso sorprendentemente desapasionado y confuso. Es más, hasta algunos congresistas empezaron a preguntarse si Donald Trump está mal de la mente. Veamos esto.
Partially shadowed by Donald Trump's outrageous statements to several hundred generals from all over the world gathered in Washington yesterday that he wanted to use U.S. cities as training grounds, his words, for the military, was his striking low energy and rambling during his hour-plus speech. From the New York Times reporting on yesterday's address, quote, For a 79-year-old, he's often shown a great deal of energy, but he seemed a bit sapped Tuesday. As his remarks went on and on, his voice took on a more monotonous quality. A day earlier, when he spoke at the White House while standing beside Mr. Netanyahu, Trump sounded out of breath at times, end quote. And from the Washington Post, quote, Trump, who draws energy from instantaneous feedback, appeared to speak more slowly than usual and in a monotone, seemingly affected by a largely mum audience, end quote. It is true the generals were a different type of audience than a raucous MAGA Trump fest. Military brass are not supposed to react to political speeches. They are supposed to remain apolitical, and they did. But Trump's demeanor has led to different questions, to questions about whether or not Donald Trump is unwell. Yesterday at this hour, as we were coming on the air in this hour, we started with Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. She joined us to talk about the government shutdown, but literally seconds before she came on the air, as we saw her getting ready in the shot on the wall, we saw a confrontation take place between the Congresswoman and Speaker Mike Johnson. And she confronted him about a lot of things. Frankly, all the things you want to see Democrats fighting for and saying to Republicans, she said and did. And one of them was Donald Trump's fitness. Watch what our cameras caught and note how his immediate response is not to say she's wrong about any of it.
The president is unhinged. He is unwell.
What are you doing? A lot of folks on your side are too. I don't control.
Oh my God, please. That performance in front of the generals, that
I didn't see it.
is so dangerous. You know I serve on foreign affairs and appropriations. This is a collision of those two things. Our allies are looking elsewhere. Our enemies are laughing.
I just left
you
the
have a
speaker's
president
side.
who is unwell.
A lot of folks on your side are also unwell. Okay. The speaker said he missed the speech. We know a lot of folks on that side tend to catch the program, so we put together a little highlight reel.
I've never walked into a room so silent before. That's enough to buy a lot of battleships, Admiral, to use an old term. I think we should maybe start thinking about battleships, by the way. You know, when I walk downstairs, like I'm on stairs, like these stairs, I walk very slowly. Nobody has to set a record. Just try not to fall, because it doesn't work out well. A few of our presidents have fallen, and it became a part of their legacy. And it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear. We can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are two N-words, and you can't use either of them. But the firemen go up on ladders, and you have people shooting at them while they're up on ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible.
But I defended them anyway. One of our next guests, Tom Nichols, echoes what Congresswoman Dean brought up with the speaker, writing this in The Atlantic, that Trump, quote, is not okay. Quote, in 1973, an Air Force nuclear missile officer named Harold Herring asked a simple question during a training session. Quote, how can I know that an order I received to launch my missiles came from a sane president? The question cost him his career. Military members are trained to execute orders, not to question them. But today, both the man who can order the use of nuclear arms and the man who would likely verify such an order gave disgraceful and unnerving performances in Quantico. How many officers left the room asking themselves Major Herring's question? That question is where we start the hour with some of our favorite experts and friends. Staff writer at The Atlantic and a contributor to The Atlantic Daily Newsletter, Tom Nichols is here. Also joining us, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Mark Hertling is here. Also joining us at the table, former Assistant U.S. Attorney and President of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Maya Wiley is here. Tom, I'm sure you heard from all sorts of your own sources. I heard from a couple of mine. And I was interested in the fact that this was the first issue they raised. I mean, of course, there's the objectionable line about our cities being training grounds. There was the whole Hegseth debacle, if you will. But the first thing my sources raised was how Trump seemed. And I wonder if that's what you heard and that's what inspired the piece.
Ok, señores, no es solo que Trump hable lento o que se quede sin energía, es el contexto, ¿no? porque está frente a los principales líderes militares del país, que por cierto, muchos de ellos tuvieron que venir de otros lados, o sea, alrededor del mundo, ¿ok? Para que entiendan el contexto. No es que son militares que estaban ahí. Una audiencia en la que se esperaba precisión, firmeza, claridad, tener un plan listo. Y claro, en vez de eso, ¿qué es lo que recibieron? Frases desordenadas, ideas que no tienen nada que ver, todo desconectado. Comentarios que rayan en lo absurdo. Y aquí vemos dos cosas importantes. Primero, que un presidente que no logra articular un discurso coherente, peor aún, frente a sus generales, sin duda pone en duda la capacidad de mando. En el ejército, amigos, cada palabra importa. De esas órdenes dependen miles de personas. Y segundo, si Donald Trump parece fuera de sí en un evento tan crucial, pues bueno, ¿qué nos dice eso sobre cómo podría reaccionar una crisis real? O sea, decisiones que terminen involucrando armas nucleares, conflictos internacionales. Sé que algunos dirán que, bueno, todos los políticos tienen malos días. Peor Trump. ¿Por qué exagerar con Trump? Amigos, no es la primera vez que vemos este patrón. Ya son varias las ocasiones. Nos está demostrando ciertos comportamientos erráticos, desvaríos verbales, falta de control. Ahora la diferencia es que lo hace frente a la cúpula militar, en un escenario donde la seriedad es obligatoria, ¿no? Y no olvidemos que figuras dentro de su propio partido, como el senador Bob Corker en su momento, llegaron a describir la Casa Blanca de Trump como una guardería de adultos. Es más, incluso hubo discusiones reales sobre invocar una enmienda para poder remover el cargo por incapacidad. No son teorías conspirativas, todo está documentado. Pero bueno, señores, ¿qué opinan ustedes? Estamos viendo realmente, una vez más, señales claras de que Trump no está en condiciones de seguir en la política, o creen que simplemente, pues bueno, fue un mal día. Los leo en los comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme en este video. Recuerden, como siempre, déjame tu like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete al canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.